To follow along with this training overview, your InfoCaster will need to be in Creation Station mode and the tutorial media files placed in an appropriate directory for you to access. Let's begin. Click on New in the InfoCaster window to create a new InfoCast. For this presentation, let's call it InfoCast 001. The first screen we see represents our entire InfoCast, the sequence window on the right, the page library in the center, and the tree view on the left. For the moment, we're going to focus on working on the media items we will use within a page layout, where we arrange our visual content. We can create as many pages as we want by simply clicking on New and naming the page. New pages are created when we want to change the layout of our InfoCast to a new or different look and feel. As an example, we might have InfoCasts set up for morning, afternoon, and evening, as our content is dependent on time of day and we want a different look and feel for each part of the day. Double-click on Page Layout 1. We are presented with the Page Layout 1 window. Our tree view is still on the left, where we will see the items we create and their related content. Our layout is 16 by 9 landscape with the output resolution set to 1280 by 768. This was set up in the InfoCaster configuration utility on the general menu. Now let's take a look at the region and item tools we have available to us. These tools allow us to lay out our media any way we'd like in order to create an engaging and eye-catching InfoCast. Regions include stills, crawls, rolls, animation, digital clocks, video, analog clocks, analog meter, audio, RTX port, and temperature probe. Let's get into these regions in a little more detail before we create our first InfoCast. We'll start with a still, which is exactly what it says, media that is not moving. This doesn't mean that a still region can't be changed over time, it can, but that content will always be static on screen. We will show you how to transition between stills in the sequencer chapter later in this training video. As with almost every item, the library provides us with a number of choices in how we bring media into InfoCaster, or how we create it inside InfoCaster. In the case of a still item, we can choose Title Quick Editor to allow us to quickly create a text graphic, Table Quick Editor for tables, Title Motion, a more powerful graphics tool based on Harris Broadcast Graphics products. Title Motion has separate training available. Graphic Importer, to bring in pictures and pre-created graphics. Web Viewer, which allows us to capture and display web pages at particular points in time. Blank Item and Sellable Item, if we have the Punctuate option installed. InfoCaster provides a lot of power in how it can handle stills, so let's go a little deeper into what we can do with still items. From Page Layout 1, double-click on the still item. Select Title Quick Editor in the drop-down list and then click Add. A good habit to get into is to label the regions we create, rather than simply leaving them with the auto-assigned name, in this case, Still 1. We should also note that everything in InfoCaster is saved dynamically as we go. This is important to remember when we are modifying InfoCasts. Unless we've made a copy, we are modifying what we've previously created. I'll replace the name Still 1 with Title, Times Square at Night, and then create the title in the text box. By clicking on the Formatting tab, we can choose the font, size the text appropriately, choose a color, with 3 color palette options. I prefer HLS, Hue, Luminance, and Saturation. We can add an edge with its own color, and a drop shadow. As the text is larger than the box, I'll select Word Wrap, and then text alignment can be set as center, right, or left. I'll choose center. The text can be positioned numerically within the window, or we can grab the text in the box and position it manually. The on-screen preview shows our adjustments as well as how our graphic will fill the box. The checkerboard pattern behind indicates transparency. If we select background, we can fill the box with a solid color, our text appearing over that color. and we can adjust the transparency of that background depending on how we want our graphic to appear over a background image. Click Save, and the created graphic is now available for sequencing, which we will get into a little later in this training. The next item in the drop-down list is the Table Quick Editor. This overview training video does not provide us with the time to get into this in detail, but the Table Quick Editor is designed to work with external data sources and provides us with rich formatting capabilities for our tables. Detailed instructions are available in the InfoCaster manual. Let me take a moment here to show how we link to external data that is regularly updated from an external source, changing information in the InfoCast. External data can be linked in almost all of the quick editors, and it's not limited to text. It could be videos, animations, and other updated elements. I'll use the Table Quick Editor to show this. In this example, we'll use a bus schedule. I know it has 6 columns, and I'll set up the table appropriately. Clicking Setup Data Source takes me to the Data Source wizard. I select Create New Text File Data Source and browse to BusSched in the tutorial file. Bus Schedule is the name I choose for this data source. The next window allows me to specify the type of data separation in the file, with a choice of comma, tab, specified column width, or custom. This file is comma delimited. Now I'll add the columns to the table, all of them in this case, though you could choose to only add some of the columns if you so desired. Hours and minutes are really all that is critical to someone waiting for a bus. So I'll click on Data Formatting and select that in the Format field, and then click Commit. Now, with any kind of schedule, there may be changes that are important to highlight, and InfoCaster lets you do this easily. Clicking Refine Range and Style takes us to an If-Then dialog. Note in the data preview that the next Dundas bus indicates delay. By typing delay in the Refine Data dialog, and please note that it is case sensitive, we can have the system automatically change the color of the delay text in column F5 to whatever color you prefer. In this case, red. The next window in the Data Source wizard lets us set up rules for retrieving and presenting data playback. In this case, I'll have the bus schedule updated every 2 minutes. But what happens if the data source becomes unavailable? We have the option to show the last known data, but that wouldn't be helpful for the person waiting. We could have the data simply expire after a predetermined length of time, have the on-screen data immediately disappear on the next update, or, as I've done here, make the viewer aware that the bus schedule is unavailable. Clicking Finished takes us back to the Table Quick Editor, where I can easily adjust the columns to fit the data source we are using. Tidal Motion is a more sophisticated graphics editor based on Harris Broadcast graphics products. With all that we can do in Tidal Motion, this powerful graphics and animation creation tool has its own training program available on DVD. The graphic importer allows us to bring in still images or pre-created graphics from our local drives or from the network or web. We can select a single image, click the preview window to see it, or we can select a group of images and click Open. When we do a batch import, any formatting we apply to the graphic that appears in the preview window will be applied to the entire group of files we have just imported. We can scale the image to fit the region while maintaining the aspect ratio, and we can position the image in the region as well. Again, the checkerboard pattern behind the graphic indicates transparency. When we hit Save, InfoCaster copies the images into its directory, so we won't need to remain connected to our original source locations to access these stills. They are now accessed from within the stored InfoCast. The Web Viewer Quick Editor allows us to capture web pages and apply the same options as the still images. It's important to note that dynamic content like flash animations or video will not be captured via the Web Viewer. As well, as with any content, we should be using only content that we have the intellectual property rights to use, whether the content is stills, video, audio, or screen grabs. The Web Viewer Quick Editor allows us to update the capture at time intervals we set, up to once a day. This can be particularly useful if part of our InfoCast points people to our regularly updated website. At first look, the blank item option might seem a little odd, but this can be a very useful tool. There may be certain times of day that we don't want a particular region showing any content. Scheduling a blank item allows us to do this. We may also have a sellable item as a still image. The sellable item shows up if Punctuate, the intelligent scheduling and billing system, is installed.